As I'm introducing this next moderator, a theme that has clearly shown through today is the importance of the relationship with your medical professional team. Obviously, we have the president and vice president of the Carol Shields fan club here in Hawaii in this room. And there might be a brawl at the pool party tonight to see who is on the board of the Jessie Berry fan club. And the importance of having an open dialogue and honesty with your doctors, your therapists, your ocularists is so incredibly important, as we have heard from so many different people. I would like to give a quick shout out to someone on the virtual, the woman who diagnosed my retinoblastoma at 17 months of age, who I've had a wonderful relationship with, and she is joining us on the virtual, Dr. Teresa Rosales. Hi, Terry. And someone else's that have been absolutely vital in my journey as a survivor are my ocularists, Stephen and Sarah Haddad. Woo! I hated going to the ocularist. It was so painful, and it was just awful. Then when I was probably a preteen, I started going to Ocular Prosthetics, and after a few visits, I was like, okay, this Stephen guy, he's not so bad, this isn't so terrible anymore. And I've shared this story many times. I look forward so much to going. It is still painful, but I love the team, and I love that Sarah has followed in her father's footsteps. And, to DJ's point, this relationship is such an important one. So please welcome our moderator, Sarah.
Hello. I'm just going to turn to this page here. My name is Sarah Haddad. I'm from Los Angeles. I am a board-certified ocularist, and I work with my father, Stephen Haddad, in Los Angeles. He has been practicing ocularistry for about 40 years. And he's going to be the first one to start off this panel all about prosthetic eyes. So let's welcome my dad.
Thank you. I want to thank the board for allowing us to participate at this meeting. I've been humbled today, and I see so many old friends. I don't even want to use the word patients. I don't look at you as patients, because I look at you as just somebody that I care for. It's just a pleasure to see you all here today. So, as you know, I just want to make it clear, that ocularists aren't physicians. I just wanted to get that out of the way. We are artists. And, let's see. Where is that? There was a green button up here earlier. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. So the goal here today is to make you familiar with the techniques used by ocularists to manage specific eyelid and socket conditions. And this is all within the realm of ocularistry. These aren't surgical approaches, which are sometimes necessary to achieve an optimal result. The role of the ocularist, as you know, is simply to design, fabricate, and fit an ocular prosthesis. And the primary reason, as we would agree, I think, is to wear a prosthesis is for social acceptance. And it's important to acquire your prosthesis at the appropriate time, both post-surgically and as replacements are required. I know that most of you or your children have a prosthesis already, so this might not be too relevant at this point in time. Each child's eye socket is different, and the final outcome or the cosmetic quality will vary from one person to the next, and it depends on the socket conditions that we're working with. Infants and toddlers are unique. Some are more easy to work with than others, and sometimes that can affect the outcome. But it does affect the technique, or it does have a bearing on the technique that we decide to use in creating the prosthesis. Just to recap, most of you who have had an enucleation obviously have an orbital implant. In very few situations, some people don't. And surgeons, feel free to step on my toes at any time. So the purpose of the implant is to replace the volume loss from the surgical removal of the eye, but to provide support and movement to the ocular prosthesis. So what I try to do is capture the upper part of the implant to support the prosthesis. So with my patients, I try to do a little test where I can actually pull their lower eyelid and not have the prosthesis drop down. It's not possible in every case. We begin with assessing the eye socket and taking a good look at what we're working with, and we determine what fitting technique we're going to use on a particular patient. So there are two basic fitting techniques, and one we refer to as the modified impression technique, where an alginate cast or silicone cast of the eye socket is made, similar to a dental impression. And that's really nice to use with an adult who can sit there still for you and allow you to provide that service. And the prosthesis, or with the alginate impression, the Ocularist utilizes an impression tray. We make our own, they're custom made in our office, and we shape this tray to fit each person's eye socket. And as you can see, the alginate is injected into the stem of the tray and flows into the patient's eye socket. And from that, we move on to removing the impression, and from that, we will make a stone cast. So with the stone cast, we'll make a wax model, and this wax model is fit into the eye socket. I actually like to, that's a hard pink wax. It has to be heated to be shaped. I also like to use a room temperature pliable wax that I add on to that wax. I call it my Play-Doh, so we can get a little more specific with our shapes and get more control. And once we create a good wax model, we move on to an acrylic model. You can move on just to make the prosthesis without fitting a wax model. We like to fit without fitting an acrylic model. We like to fit an acrylic model because it has the same type of friction as the final prosthesis will have. So with the remaining fabrication process, we elect to hand paint our prostheses. You can purchase digital images. I find that they're a little flat and not as lifelike as opposed to painting in layers. So it gives you an idea of what it looks like as hand painted. So this patient here is a retinoblastoma survivor, and there she is. You see her with her white shape, and she has a little bit of a sulcus recession. We're going to talk about these socket anomalies as we move on. And so then there she is, just completed. Okay, but I want to reiterate that you can go on the internet and you see these cases that look wonderful, but it's not going to be that way for every person. And so try not to compare yourself with other people. It's just the way it is. You can come into our office, and in the waiting room, you can see one person that looks amazing, one looks okay, and one doesn't look good at all. And I've spent so much more time on that case that doesn't look good. So empirical design is the alternative to making an impression. And this is what I use mostly for infants and toddlers, because I have direct control over what I'm doing, and I'm not traumatizing this patient in our office. Some ocularists go to the hospital and take impression molds with the child under anesthesia. I've done that, and it works, and I've had success with it. But in my experience, I feel I do better with just working with them empirically. And we can manage to create a prosthesis in as little as maybe 4 insertion and removals in the entire process. So I always focus on limiting traumatizing this baby. Why use empirical design? Well, it's great in pediatric cases, even with adults who are nervous, sensitive, uncooperative. I like to use empirical in contracted sockets because the socket's small, and again, I feel I have more control in the design factor. So with empirical, I will have a collection of literally hundreds of different shapes that we've made and collected over a period of time. And it's just through experience that you can look into somebody's eye socket and it's empiric, right? Empiric is from experience, from intuition. And you look into the eye socket and you go to your collection and you sort of know where to go. And then you do an insertion and you take it out and you adjust and you fit, change things, mark iris position, and you complete the prosthesis. So these are empirically fitted cases. There were no impression molds, and I think the result is good. I don't know if you can see that little line on that white shape. So we have these little markings that we put on the prosthesis so we know what position our prosthesis is sitting in, and then it helps us in our decisions to move forward and to adjust things. So again, even with adults, not just children, we will use the empiric method. This woman is 77 years old, and she wouldn't even let me touch her, and it was such a terrible experience trying to fit her, and she was the most wonderful person in the world, and a real famous restaurateur, and so she offered to buy me dinner for putting up with her, but So the post-enucleation socket syndrome is something that most enucleated patients have to some degree, or you'll have some characteristics of this socket syndrome. And it's having a deep recession above your upper eyelid. It may be having a droopy upper eyelid. Over time, as you get older, sometimes the implant maybe migrates downward, and some of the soft tissue will migrate downward, and your prosthesis will tend to start tilting back. And if you notice, if you see a prosthesis, oftentimes it's thicker at the top and thinner at the bottom, and that's because the ocularist is trying to fill some space up there superiorly. A shallow lower fornix is something that can occur over time as well, and that's the lower pocket into which the prosthesis fits. So that's just a diagram of how a prosthesis sits into an eye socket, and you see the little red area there where the ocularist may need to add some upper anterior thickness to help fill that sulcus recession. So the eyelid conditions that we work with, again, are just ptosis, entropion, which is a turning inward of the eyelids and the eyelashes, and we may see that with a radiated socket. Unfortunately, I hear about ocularists trying to correct entropion with a prosthesis, and I can honestly tell you in 44 years, I really haven't been able to correct entropion with a prosthesis. It really should be referred to a surgeon. And I think a great place to start is to consult with your ocular oncologist, who will give you more advice as to how to handle that. Lower eyelid laxity is something that that may occur later on after years of wearing a prosthesis. You don't see that very often in young children, newly enucleated cases. It's really not the case. Ectropion is just a turning outward of the eyelashes, and that's associated with a lax and flaccid lower eyelid. That can sometimes be corrected with a prosthesis. I'll show you that in a moment. And a dropped eye syndrome is just sort of basically a dropped orbit looks. Like some people will come in and they'll say, my prosthesis is lower than my good eye, and can't you just raise it up? And I said, well, if I raise your prosthesis, it would be great, but I also have to raise your lower eyelid and your upper eyelid, and that just all can't happen. So we have to compromise. And fitting on a daily basis. Our work is a big compromise. How do I set this, and where do I set this to make it look as natural as possible? And these are the compromises we make. So sometimes you ask your ocularist for things that just simply can't be done. So this is an enucleation patient. He's 24. I've had him since age 2. And he has a ptosis, and we use this little reverse curve design above the iris, and we fill in up above in the sulcus, and then you see it sort of, it helps. But I have about as much pressure on that lower eyelid as I can possibly have, but I think it's a good compromise. And this becomes opinion-based too, and what the patient thinks is really what matters. Another deep sulcus recession with, I call this a pseudotosis, because he really doesn't have a ptosis. His eye is just drooping because of a lack of volume, and nothing's there to push his eyelid up. So when we fit his prosthesis, it actually came up very easily, and using that technique, and there he is, and it all fills in, and his sulcus filled in as well too. Enucleation, again, with the pseudotosis. She really doesn't have a ptosis. It looks like she has one, but she doesn't. And, it's having the appropriate prosthesis volume, size, and fit that will achieve that kind of result. So one of the things that we run into quite often, and even with young enucleated patients, is a retracted upper eyelid. And you see that the eye is open too wide. And I've had even physicians call me and say, hey, you made the eye too big up at the top. The eyelid's too high. And when sometimes actually the prosthesis has to be made thicker and filled in at the upper anterior surface to keep the lid forward and down. So you see her white shape, it's too wide open, right? That's just too much. And so I used that technique, and and it helped. So I think her lid came down to some extent. But what's the compromise here? The compromise is that her eye, from that pressure that I added, it's tilting back just a little bit. So her light reflex is too low now. But I thought it was the best compromise because it helped bring the upper eyelid down. So entropion, as I just said, I can't fix that. We need the surgeons for that. There are lots of things we need the surgeons for that we can't do. This is ectropion, lower eyelid laxity. He had the whole gamut. This happens not to be an enucleation. You could probably see that. This is a tisical blind eye. 45% of the patients that come into our practice still have their eye. About 55% are enucleated. So there's his white shape, and I know his white shape's looking out on this shot, but there he is, finished. So we just about were able to get his eyelids into a pretty good position. So he's ectropic and lax on his lower eyelid on his good side, so that sort of helped us out. Ectropion, lower eyelid laxity, you have to have just a very thin lower flange going down into the lower part of the eye socket, and you actually curve that forward, and it will act like a fulcrum and pull the lower eyelid up. So that's the technique we use there. And I'm just trying to make you familiar with this so you'll know, but don't go to your ocularist and tell him how to make the eye. So that's an issue. So he has ptosis with lower eyelid laxity. He has the dropped eye syndrome. And I think this is Sarah's case, and I thought she did a really good job at reaching a compromise. So, it's never going to look like his other eye, but honestly, he does really well. And also spectacles help to sort of put a little screen over things. So it's just really interesting because, we have people wearing special eyes. And then, on another note, we're here trying everything we possibly can to make this match. Which way do we go? I'm going to end it here and have Sarah come up and talk to you about PEGs and finish the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to start off with PEG attachments. A PEG attachment is an elective surgery where a surgeon screws a hollow titanium sleeve into a patient's existing implant. However, that implant needs to be a specific, special type of implant that's usually made out of Porolite or Medpor. It's most likely a porous material implant. Here you can see a diagram of a peg being inserted into an implant. And the peg then connects to the back of the prosthesis. And you can see here that we have to make a little divot in the back of the prosthesis that catches onto the ball of the peg. And that creates optimal movement because there's no loss of friction between the implant and the prosthesis. And the prosthesis will now move as much as the implant. These are difficult prostheses to make. The location of this divot needs to be exact. They're very complicated and time-consuming for both the patient and the ocularist. So the peg attachments have advantages and disadvantages, such as some of the advantages are they have better movement, it helps with supporting the weight of the prosthesis, there's less force that's put on the lower eyelid to avoid that lower laxity that can sometimes happen as the patient gets older. As wonderful as these things sound, there's a lot of disadvantages as well. There's a much higher rate of infection. There's an increase in mucus secretions. There's noise from the peg sometimes. I've had patients complain to me that they can hear the peg kind of dragging on the back of the prosthesis, so that can be cumbersome for a patient. There's gapping at the canthi, and it sometimes can be very difficult to insert and remove the eye with the peg. And there's a higher cost. So, my personal opinion is I think the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, but I don't wear a prosthesis, and, I do see the benefits of it too. I don't know how often surgeons do this now, but we do have a handful of patients that do have a peg. Lots of disadvantages. Take it from Dr. Barry. So moving along, I'm going to talk a little bit about implant replacement. Implant replacement is the removal of one's current orbital implant and replacing it with another. There's only a few certain situations where this is necessary. However, we don't see it often. Some of these reasons are implant exposure. And implant exposure is when the socket tissue covering the implant is compromised to which the implant is visible. This can give you a high risk for infections, and it can cause problems, but sometimes an exposure is sustainable on its own and will just be overlooked by the oculoplastic surgeon. I have patients that have had an exposure for years and never any problems. So just having that follow-up with your doctor is just so important, and your surgeon. Migrated implants, those are implants that have greatly moved out of a central position. This tends to be seen more with solid implants than porous implants. And then one other reason is the implant is too small. Kind of what Clay was talking about earlier, how she had this implant for 40 years and then it was too small. So you need a larger one or a fat graft to increase that volume so you can have a more conventional shape in a prosthesis. So I just want to touch on the emotional aspect of a relationship between an ocularist and their patient. This is my lovely patient, Charlotte, and her mom, Kat, who will also be speaking today on this panel. And Charlotte has been with us since she was a year and a half, yeah. And I remember when Charlotte came in and she had finished her chemo, and it was hard to see her. She didn't have her hair, and now her hair is the most beautiful hair I've ever seen. It's like down to her waist with these beautiful curls, and it's really a wonderful thing to be able to see and just watch her grow up. And as an ocularist, I do understand, and we are aware of the emotional impact that wearing a prosthesis has on the patients as well as the family, and specifically the parents. I see it a lot because we usually start to see these patients when they're babies. And so these children, this is who they are. This is how they grew up. They don't know any different. But the parents are the ones I find, from my point of view and just my observation, who kind of struggle the most. And, just want to remind you that your ocularist is there for you if you do wear a prosthetic eye. And, and kind of what Summer was saying about the strength, like what she said is perfect. And I was just like, yes, like you nailed it, because I also have the unfortunate advantage of seeing kind of patients that don't have that support system. Like you guys, these parents you are amazing. The fact that you are here, you should feel so proud of yourself, and your children are going to thank you. Your children are going to understand that you restricted them for a reason, while holding them down to get a prosthetic eye. They're not gonna hate you, kind of like what DJ was saying, and I have seen this over the years. And moving along with that is sometimes, empowerment is important, and sometimes we get these requests for fun eyes. Like Charlotte has in her purple sparkly eye. A fun eye is an ocular prosthesis with alternative artwork. It's intentionally made not to match the natural eye. In my experience, I have witnessed the positive impact these prostheses have made. I do find, like what everybody, survivors have talked about, especially Genevieve, I've also seen that it promotes a sense of control. You didn't have control over getting diagnosed with retinoblastoma. Nobody asked for that. And I think that allowing you to take back that control and create that individuality for you as a patient is a really wonderful thing. I find that it to be kind of a release of trying to seek perfection, with a matching prosthesis. If it's never going to be your natural eye, then, I had a patient tell me this. If it's never going to look exactly like my other eye, then I just want it to look totally different. And I respect that. My job, my most important job as an ocularist, is to make the patient feel comfortable when they leave my office. I don't care what they want on the eye, whether it's all black or purple sparkles, or they put me through the ringer to get it look as exactly as possible, and so all of those things, like I understand them. I have a lot of empathy, and I also agree that it's an extremely vulnerable decision to choose to have an alternative prosthesis. I find that a lot of times people can make assumptions, and I think that having a fun eye is a conversation starter, and it helps you connect with your community. So I do see a lot of positive reasons for having this. I also find that it promotes a way of teaching your child how to insert and remove their eye, because they're motivated. They want to wear that purple glittery one, but maybe for Christmas pictures, or I don't know what, maybe they want to put the matching eye in. And I really love this new aspect of prosthetic eyes. And here are some fun eyes. So this little girl, she actually came in with like a drawing of what she wanted, and it was the cutest thing ever. And we got to sit down and talk about it. I'm like, do you want sparkles? Do you want this? And I've been making her prosthetic eye since she was a baby. These are all retinoblastoma thrivers, and I've never seen her that happy. She had a new pep in her step. You could see that she created this. This is what she wanted, and then I was able to deliver it. And it was a really wonderful feeling, and I feel very fortunate to have been a part of that for her. Sometimes patients don't want the full, fun eye, but they still want something fun. And so we do these little icons that kind of signify the top and the bottom of the prosthesis. I kind of use it as like a little secret. Nobody else knows it's there except us. And I think that it makes kind of polishing appointments a little bit less traumatic, because I can say, well, let's take it out and see Olaf, let's get in there, and so then they get excited and they're like, I want to see it. So I find them to be a fun little aspect. And Marissa wanted me to talk about a little bit why I chose to follow in my father's footsteps. And I just would say the main reason is helping people. I studied psychology in college, and helping people was always a really big passion of mine. And I watched my dad, as a child and growing up. I was always fascinated at his work and how impactful it was on his patients' lives. And I've been working with him for over 15 years. And it's actually really cool because I get to see patients who he had been seeing since they were babies, and now they're in their 20s and 30s, and I get to see them, and they know more about my life than I do sometimes. And, I kind of have a joke. I'm like, we're kind of siblings, we kind of grew up together. And so it's really, as an ocularist, you build this sense of family vibes because you're with these people from, infancy to adulthood. And it's just, I feel very, very blessed, very fortunate to be a part of this small group of people. And yeah, and I make better ones than him. No, I'm just kidding. So with that, I just want to say thank you. This is our team at Ocular Prosthetics, and so now I would like to introduce our next speaker. This is Camille Loyer. I've been practicing that all day. And she is an ocularist in Australia who works with her father as well. And she is about to get her board certification with the American Society of Oculistry next week. And she's going to give us a little talk about what she does in Australia.
Hi everyone, I'm Camille Loyer, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you all today. I've loved all of the talks so far, so thank you everybody who's contributed. I'm not thrilled to be behind the microphone. It's not my comfortable place, but I really love what I do, and I couldn't say no to Sandra, so... I'm an ocularist from Australia, and I'm here with my dad, Patrick. I started working, already mucked up. Here we go. I started working with him 11 years ago. There was no succession plan. However, when I think back, I always had thought that I might end up doing this, and I know that he wishes that I had told him that sooner. Just like in the US, the process to become an ocularist in Australia is to undertake an apprenticeship with an already practicing ocularist. In the USA, there's a society, college, and a more rigorous certification, which is impossible to have in a low-income country like Australia. And so I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to complete the college course as part of the American Society of Ocularists, and we're heading to Chicago tomorrow for my graduation, so I'm excited about that. Thanks. The nature of the training and the familiarity with the profession and skill set required means that the skills are often passed down in families, just like with Steve and Sarah. So, a few things about Australia. Australia is huge. It's almost the same size as the US and takes about 5 hours to fly across the country. What sets us apart is that our entire population is 27 million people, which is less than the population of Texas. More people in Texas than all of Australia. 90% of our population is clustered around the coast, and so there's a large area in the middle, which is a desert with kangaroos and camels and insects, and not much else. There are 1 or 2 ocularist practices in all of the main cities, meaning that we service a similar amount of people as the ocularists in the US. However, people in regional or rural areas do need to travel further for specialist care. There's a small group of us that make up the Ocularist Association of Australia, and there's 3 father-daughter combos in the 15 of us, I think. Like the other medical professionals in this room, ocularists put in long hours and are dedicated in making a positive impact in someone's life. It's a privilege to do our work, and we know that this little piece of plastic that we make can be a huge part of healing after a devastating diagnosis. The nature of retinoblastoma means that we are working with young children all the way through adulthood. It is therefore crucial for the ocularist to nurture this relationship and assist the traumatised patient with ongoing care for their prosthesis. We want people to look forward to coming to see us, and when we work with children, our motto is friends first. If the child trusts you and enjoys visiting, then it's easier for us to work and more peaceful for them. And this sets them up well for future medical and prosthetic eye appointments as well. This photo shows a lady wearing a prosthetic eye that's very starey, and you can see how little eyelid she has to cover her prosthesis. She overlooked care for her prosthesis for many years and ended up with extreme contracture and eyelids that are far from being able to close over her prosthesis, causing a dry, irritated eye. This is obviously an extreme case that we don't see often. However, it demonstrates the need for good prosthetic eye care and the potential discomfort for artificial eye wearers whose eyelids do not close. In addition to eye loss and vision loss, retinoblastoma survivors can face additional challenges when wearing a comfortable prosthesis, especially if radiation was part of their treatment. The main side effect on a radiated enucleated socket is a dry, irritated prosthetic eye, which requires more lubrication for comfort. The eyelids may not close completely, as they are rarely as developed as if radiation had not been part of treatment, and this creates fitting and cosmesis challenges for the ocularist and patient, and likely some level of discomfort for the patient. It is essential for artificial eye wearers to attend regular checkups with their ocularist for prosthesis polishing, as a smooth surface allows for easier blinking and helps with eyelid closure, which in turn improves lubrication. In situations where eyelid closure is incomplete, the exposed portion of the prosthesis tends to collect debris and dried mucus, requiring more frequent polishing and cleaning. In our practice, we suggest cleaning the prosthesis with a rigid contact lens cleaner that includes a protein remover, and it was discussed earlier, our body does a pretty good job of looking after the prosthesis, so there's no need to be removing it constantly. Usually every 3 months or so will do the trick for most people. Let's talk about tears. There are 3 layers of tears that provide good lubrication. They're listed on the slide. So we've got aqueous, watery tears, lipid, oily tears, and mucin, which is mucus. Artificial eye wearers are unlikely to lack mucus, however, the watery and oily layers are often lacking. Depending on age, gender, prosthesis fitting, and if radiation has occurred, different products will be required. Ointments and gels tend to stay on the surface longer than water-based lubricants and can be especially helpful at nighttime. Dry and windy conditions can pose extra challenges for artificial eye wearers, and those of you wearing an eye have probably noticed the difference just travelling to Hawaii and being in a different climate. Due to the nature of retinoblastoma, the ocularist will work with patients from a young age through adulthood. It is vital to develop a trusting, long-term relationship. The ocularist plays a crucial role in caring for emotions and psychosocial aspects of prosthesis wear, as well as physical fabrication of the prosthesis. The ocularist must encourage their patients to keep regular appointments and learn to care for their prosthesis and eye socket, as well as our role in protecting and developing the anatomy. With the child patient, the ocularist must gently develop the soft tissue and bony orbit to balance both sides of the face in a gentle way so as to achieve a pleasing cosmesis in adulthood, as well as protecting the eyelids from being stretched or improperly developed, which can lead to a droopy lower lid or an underdeveloped top lid. Ptosis is a common challenge that the patient and ocularist will face, and there is a balance between making a prosthesis that's open and visually pleasing for the young patient and not putting too much pressure on the lower eyelid. Upper eyelid ptosis surgery is generally more straightforward than trying to repair a depressed lower lid due to the lacrimal drainage anatomy that's on the inside corner of our eye. And a good relationship with between patient and ocularist is crucial to navigate decisions when making a new prosthesis. Before I wrap up my presentation, I'd like to speak about one of our patients. This is Ron. He was born blind and wears 2 prosthetic eyes. Despite, or more likely, due to the challenge that he has faced, he has lived an extraordinary and very fulfilling life. He's a husband, a father, and a well-respected law professor in Australia. His contributions to the legal field and advocacy for those with disabilities are really too numbered to mention here. His successes are due to his determination and hard work. In his memoir, he credits my dad as having a huge impact on his success. He alone is responsible for his success, but while we know that we only play a small part in someone's life, we can't underestimate the importance of good eye contact in our connection with others and the confidence gained by wearing a beautiful, well-fitting prosthesis. Thank you.
Okay, and next up, I would like to introduce Kat. Kat is mom to one of my favorite patients, Charlotte.
Well, to say that I'm honored to be standing up here is an understatement. A couple months ago, I thought, I'm just going to go to the convention as a parent and soak it all in, and then Marissa asked me to speak, and I could not turn down the opportunity, because I feel like advocating for our community is why I'm here. So thank you for allowing me to be on stage with 2 of my most favorite people and my angels, as well as in the same room as our what I call a superhuman of a person, Dr. Barry. She is a godsend and another angel. Sorry if I get a little vibrato in my voice. I'm not crying. I just am a nervous speaker. So this is my baby girl, Charlotte. So my talk is kind of about like finding your story as a family and controlling your narrative. So this is a picture of Charlotte with her conformer in a few months after enucleation. I was getting very comfortable with her conformer, and then we went to a birthday party where I was proven that not everybody was comfortable with the look of her conformer. It was a child's birthday party, and many children were kind of upset, worried about her, saying her eye hurts, and pretty much I just had to tell them, like, she's healthy, she got sick as a baby, the doctor had to help her by giving her a fake eye. I really tried to avoid using negative words like removal, surgery, anything that would be scary. And so finding our story was not really easy at first. Finding that story was just talking it out with others. People would come up and ask, how do I ask you what happened? I'm like, please just ask what happened. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to express that and explain that, and talking it through with others is how we found our story. It was totally a learning experience. When Charlotte did have her clear conformer, like I already addressed, that party was my first experience learning what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, kind of like I said, staying away from the terms like surgery and cancer to kids, expressing the fact that she was a very young baby when it happened, so they're not fearful that, this is something that could happen to me. The parents who spoke to me, I always try to use it as a learning experience. I always try to talk about the glow and just want to spread the knowledge about that, and just express that how I found it was through the reflection in her eye when she was between 6 and 9 months old. Most children are not shy, as we've addressed many times, to ask what happened to her eye, so we simply say it got sick when she was a baby, the doctor helped by giving her a fake eye, now she's better. Expressing, again, I do not use negative words like removal, cancer, surgery, taking it out, or anything that a kid might not understand or might make it scary to them. And now that I have been telling people, I have heard Charlotte tell other kids when they asked her, like, my eye was sick as a baby, I'm okay, and then they run off and play. I try not to leave anything up to the imagination of kids because they have quite the imagination. I do not want any kids to go home and think that they can give themselves a purple glittery eye by putting glitter in their eye. I do not want kids coming up with what they think that happens. Leaves room for them to make up stories and rumors. Being straight to the point and keeping it simple helps us control our narrative. I learned from the RB Moms group that was a very empowering place for me to find that having fun eyes can definitely empower a child, and just kind of helps squash any curiosities. I've read one mom that says that she tells her classmates that they do not take it out to avoid kids to like making it a party trick on the playground. And ask your kid how they feel and what they feel comfortable saying. Practice at home, build their confidence. We call it Charlotte's special eye. And just use the words that work well for you and your family. When people ask you what happened, try to use the words that just make you feel comfortable. Find your own story, and that's just how we control our narrative. We do go to eye exams now. She's 2 years post-chemo, so now we're able to go once a year to see Dr. Barry, but it was 6 months, like every 6 months, so this is her braving it out on her daddy's lap with the big cameras, which it looks very easy in these pictures, but a lot of times it is not. Even to this day, we just went about a month ago, and it was very hard for her to like look in, but we try to say like, oh, look at the blue light like it's a video game and stuff like that, try to keep it fun for her. Prosthetic fitting with the amazing Haddad team, as this picture shows, is also not easy. Thank God Sarah has the energy of Snow White, because I do not. After we close the door, she probably hears me go like, come on, Charlotte, let's just get this done. But Sarah, Dad, and Mom have to hold Charlotte very tight. Like, we only go to an oculist appointment with her father and I because he has to bear hug her. I have to hold her head. She's getting extremely strong. Last time I had to like get her legs between my legs and hold her head. And she's like squinting her eye as hard as she possibly can, so we like can't pry the thing out. But Sarah's always playing the best music. She keeps it really fun, light, and positive, and Charlotte is always looking forward to her lollipop at the end of it. That's her first prosthetic eye, where she's holding that lollipop out. So an interesting story for us is we took holiday photos a few months before this, a few months before her enucleation, and the sun was hitting her left eye just right, and I would cry because I thought that we were never going to get family photos that looked like that ever again. After receiving her prosthetic eye, we actually did take another set of family photos where the sun was hitting her left eye almost in the same position, and I was just amazed by how natural it looked. So Charlotte, being influenced by others on the internet, hopefully you follow some of the people who have prosthetic fun eyes. Charlotte was seeing them and then also seeing like those TY toys with like purple sparkly eyes, and just said, Mommy, I want a purple eye. And I said, well, unlike other children, you can make that decision for yourself. So if you want to ask for it, you have to ask for it. And during the next appointment with Sarah, she was like, Mommy, can I ask? I'm like, go for it. And she told Sarah herself that she wanted a purple eye. And Sarah, so this prosthetic actually, so as they mentioned, it's hard to fit a toddler and an infant. So this eye would rotate, like the heart that was always up top would hang out in her inner canthus a lot. And so Sarah decided to cover the whole thing in purple sparkly, and it looks incredible. I don't know if I can play a video through this, but this is a video of her receiving her prosthetic eye for the first time. And so I wish I could play it because it's like Sarah presenting it and her dad going like, oh, wow, because we kind of thought that just the iris was going to be purple, sparkly, but I understand that that would also be like, you know, it's still going to rotate and it's still going to be all over the place. And, oh, here we go.
It's glittery purple. I love it.
Oh, that is cool.
Look at that face.
Is that cool?
Do you love it?
Should we try it in?
We're gonna try
What
it?
it looks like?
Let's see what it looks like in your eye. That was the easiest oculist appointment we've ever been to. She wanted to get that purple eye in, and she has not wanted to take it out since. So just a small thing about us, we do not take the prosthetic eye out at home. When she did have that prosthetic eye that would rotate, the first time it rotated, we called Joe's mom over, and she helped us hold Charlotte down to get the eye out, and it was a very traumatizing experience. So now we just leave it up to Sarah. Takes a village, takes a team. So when kids point and look at her, and we have Knott's passes, we go to Knott's all the time, there's lots of kids who are always pointing and stuff, or kids in the grocery store that will literally walk up and down an aisle and be like, what? And I always just kind of address, their parents will kind of hit their hand or try to act like they don't want to, and I'm like, oh, hey, do you see her purple sparkly eye? I mean, come on, you can't miss it. And so I tell them, yes, it's fake, because many kids you come across have never even, they've never seen a prosthetic, they don't know a fake anything, so I'm just like, yes, her eye is fake, and then they don't even have to question it. I sometimes will follow up by saying that she got sick as a baby, her doctor helped her by giving her a fake eye, and now she's all better, thriving, not only surviving, but definitely thriving. So I'll be like, isn't her eye cool? And they usually agree and either ask more questions or, like I said before, take her hand and run off and go play. So Charlotte did just start TK in August, and I wasn't really sure how this was gonna go. I told Joe, okay, I guess we'll find out the first couple weeks how she feels about having a purple sparkly eye, because she might tell us I want that natural eye. So the same day we put the prosthetic eye in, Sarah gave us another natural looking eye that was a different fit. But we've never put that one in because she just loves her purple sparkly eye so much. There was an instant just a few weeks ago when we were at another birthday party, and she was playing, and a girl was like, oh, wow, you have a purple eye, and Charlotte's like, don't worry about it. I was like, well, baby, that's not really how we talk to people. So I kind of addressed it to the child. I understand, she was playing. She didn't want to be bothered. But after that, I asked Charlotte, does it bother you that you have a purple eye? Do you not like it when people talk to you about it? She's like, no, I like my purple eye. So just keeping that conversation open with your child, even though she's 4.5, and sometimes I don't feel like she can express her feelings, she most definitely can. She knows what's going on. She's hip to the jive of having the purple eye. So looking forward to school, I didn't really know how this was going to go, but throughout the summer, I sent notes off to the nursing staff in the district, the nursing staff at the school. First day of school, I provided them with a little baggie and said, this has never happened to us, but I've heard online as kids grow, their prosthetics can come out, so if it ever comes out, here's a patch, just gave them everything they needed to take care of that if it ever happened. Luckily, the district nurse has had a kid with a prosthetic eye before, so they're very comfortable with her situation. Also, the last time we took her to the Kaiser pediatric ophthalmologist, we were saying yeah, we're getting her used to wearing the glasses, and he said, no, she needs to wear the glasses from the moment she wakes up at night to the moment she goes to bed. You don't know when accidents could happen. They could happen at home. They could happen anytime. And so to protect her seeing eye, we do encourage her to wear those glasses at all times. And actually, I did receive a call from the school 2 weeks ago informing me that Charlotte does not have glasses on her face. So if you could get glasses to the school before recess is in 2 hours. And I was very impressed with, all I did was have to express to them that she needs glasses at all time. And they took it upon themselves to make sure that happened. So I called my mom, was like, get some glasses over to the school. What happened was she just went to go put her sweatshirt on before school, put her glasses down, all of you wearing glasses, if you weren't wearing glasses, I probably wouldn't notice, so things happen. But her teachers and her nursing staff are aware and are very supportive. And the first day of school, learning from the RB moms what narrative to take, I actually did go in the first day of school and address to the kiddos, oh, have you seen her purple sparkly eye? Just kind of the same thing. Doctor helped her by giving her a fake eye. She's totally fine. if you want to show her a toy, just show her on the side of her seeing eye, and she could do everything that you can do. So, if you ever see her without her glasses, just be a friend and be like, hey, Charlotte, we need to go find those glasses. And it has worked really well so far, and she seems to be very confident and loves her purple sparkly eyes. So this is just a little tidbit of what I said to the kids, which I think I already went over. It was really cute because when I went in, she's TK, so they're 4 or 5 years old. So I was like, oh my gosh, you guys have been to the doctor, right? They help you get better. And this kid was like, they gave me 3 shots. And I was like, well, that's to make you healthy, right? So this is how her doctor helped her stay healthy, was to, give her a purple sparkly eye. These are also one of the ways that we help protect her eyes is sunglasses. That girl has a bigger collection of sunglasses than I will ever see, and she rocks them all amazingly. So protect her eyes from the sun and just make sure that if she's out and about playing, she's always protected. These are some of our favorite products that were recommended by Dr. Barry and by Sarah. Charlotte loves the 2020 spray. She just uses it like a little refresh mist. The eye drops are not the easiest thing to do. She is kind of starting to want to put them in on her own. I always remind her to put them in her special eye. I actually use the silicone drops on myself to see what they would feel like, and they're not for natural eyes, let me tell you that. They will create a little bit of a blur. Boogie wipes are a godsend. She wakes up in the morning usually picking her eyelashes, so I use the boogie wipes all day, every day, and make sure that she has boogie wipes in her backpack if she needs to use them. And then when she's sick, just the antibiotic ointment does help keep those boogies away. But anytime, these kids are snotty constantly, and it comes out her eye too. So just want to leave it at that, and maybe open it up to questions. So thank you.
We don't have time for questions, but we really appreciate everybody being here today, and I'm going to have Marissa come up and finish us off.